Welcome to the fourth episode of SYSTRA's Connected Careers podcast. Today we're focusing on our degree apprentices. I'm Morgan Coates and I'm a technical coordinator working in utilities on High Speed 2. I did a traditional degree, but we're here talking obviously to some degree apprentices. So I'm here with Jaden and Mohamed. You guys could introduce yourselves a little bit and what team you're in.
My name is Jaden Neal. I'm in the architecture department.
Thank you. My name is Mohamed Baaziz and I'm in the development and infrastructure department.
Development and infrastructure. Fabulous. Okay. Well, we'll start with you, Mohamed. What does development and infrastructure actually do? What does that mean?
Great question. Very, very, very good question, actually. So within development infrastructure, we look at a wide range of projects. So we deal with clients such as within the public sector, private developers. We vary projects from ranging from billions to millions. So the project schemes could be huge or small. Where we come in is as a highways engineer within the development infrastructure team. We look at the transportation design. We look at things like sustainability, improving safety, improving journey time, improving user experiences that will be utilizing the future designs. And we work all over the globe. We work within the UK. We work in countries such as Saudi Arabia, Morocco. We've got offices in Canada as well, United States. So that's pretty much what we do.
Oh, cool. So is that from like a private point of view, is that assisting like housing developers deliver transport schemes around new sites and things like that?
Yeah, so we assist housing developers to look at more so the traffic modelling side of things as well. So we've got teams that have a look at the traffic modelling, traffic analysis. We also assist with highway designs, not necessarily the residential detail design. However, we do have capabilities to do that. Although we more focus on, say, an access design for 300 or 1,000 homes. That's where we'd step in and help produce the designs for that.
Yeah. Okay. So trying to sort of reduce the impacts on local communities and those kinds of things and provide feasible schemes.
Yeah, exactly. And another one of our clients would be National Highways. So we've assisted them on their developments, assessing other developers' designs and seeing whether they're compliant with the DMRB standards.
Okay. No, that's really interesting. It obviously ties into a lot of SYSTRA's work is based around transport and public transportation and mass transportation. So yeah, it really follows with our sort of ethics and schemes. Jaden, what is it that you do in the
so in the architecture department, I've qualified as a technologist. So the architect typically will decide how the building looks and how it feels for the occupants and how it flows from space to space inside. While the technologist looks at more of it's more like nitty-gritty side of it, the build-ups, how it's put together, how it's constructed. And as a whole, the team, we kind of oversee a lot of the other disciplines and kind of look at how it all goes together at the end. We quite often end up leading clash detections, and it's all how it all integrates together.
That coordination to make sure that
to make sure everything kind of works and
when we deliver a design, it actually fits together on site. No, that's interesting. Yeah, so I guess you go to uni in the same way as an architect.
Yes,
and do that first section, isn't it? A lot of it.
From what I've been told, the part one of architecture and the first few years of technology are very similar.
Yeah, they follow similar schemes from uni. But okay, so both of you are degree apprentices. So what was that? How did you make that decision? Like you've finished your A-levels presumably or halfway through them. How did you make that decision? I want to do a degree apprenticeship.
Yeah, so you're tracking me back 10 years now, so jogging my memory a little bit. But for me personally, when I first set myself on this pathway, in school I knew I wanted to be a civil engineer. My father was a civil engineer growing up. I've always had ambitions to follow in his footsteps. So there's always been an interest there to go into the route of civil engineering.
Yeah.
The question lies is what route is best and which route was more suitable to myself to go on that pathway. For me personally, I tried university out. I went to a foundation year degree full-time. For myself and my style of learning, I felt that the working and being in a working environment majority of the days would be beneficial to me.
Did it fit better with the way that you wanted to learn?
Yeah, exactly. Just my style of learning and wanting to get things done and gain experience, as opposed to be sat 5 days within a lecture looking at a lecture board, which of course you do learn things from. However, I feel like actually applying what you're learning as the days are going on has much of a higher impact than just learning it and putting it back to the back of your mind.
No, I mean, a traditional university degree is definitely probably the default setting for career progression, I think. It's definitely not for everyone, and everyone learns in different ways. I mean, I think you've touched on a really important point there, that you tried out university and then moved onto a degree of apprenticeship, which is, I mean, it's unusual, but I think it illustrates the point that actually these things are flexible. You can change your mind, and you could go the other way. You could do your first year of an apprenticeship and decide, actually, this isn't for me. I need to change it up. How was yours? Was your progression similar to that, Jaden, or was it?
Yeah, it was quite similar, as you mentioned as well. Like engineering was kind of like it's like from my dad and my granddad, so I already knew from like high school I wanted to go into some form of engineering or construction. I actually did a year at college full time. I did a 1-year course in product design.
Okay.
And since it was a 1-year course, the lecturers were very much trying to push you down an apprenticeship route to kind of say, come on, like get applying. It must have been an hour a week where you just sat down applying for apprenticeships. In SYSTRA, or as it used to be known before as TSP, they came in and they were talking about what the company does. That sounded good to me, so I eventually applied to it. But as we've already touched on, I always kind of wanted to do it as more of a apprenticeship style, because I don't learn very well just sat down looking at a lecture board. I prefer to get experience and be quite hands-on. So from probably about 14, 15, I knew I wanted to go a more practical way of doing it.
No, I mean, that's interesting, and it's useful to have the support from college, I think, because I know, like, my school, they were mentioned, but it wasn't pushed, you know what I mean? It was like some people would do them, but probably not you. How do you think the perception of, like, degree apprenticeships has changed since you started? Because obviously you're near the end, and you're obviously, both of you are probably pretty close to this first, probably maybe the third cohort of modern degree apprentices to come through. Like, how do you feel that that's changed?
Yeah, I think the apprenticeship game as a whole over the years has evolved and it's improved. I'd like to look back when I first started the apprenticeship back in 2019 and 2020. The apprenticeship wasn't necessarily as organised as the route is now. I believe that people in this day and age no longer look at an apprenticeship as a plan B option. However, it's now seen as a plan A, from people not having to necessarily pay student fees, also earning a salary on the side of that. In addition to that, you're gaining social skills, you're gaining speaking skills, you have the ability to work with clients on world-renowned projects. So I think that the different institutes such as the ICE have definitely helped improve the apprenticeship process. Looking at my route personally, we look at completing the incorporated engineer status at the end of my apprenticeship, which will hopefully be sitting in the next year or so. Now looking at that and seeing how that process has improved, you see a lot of support from the universities. You have a lot of line managers that go through working sessions to bring them up to speed on apprenticeship. Because I think one thing we have to remember is that people are coming straight out from school. They're also coming out straight out of A-levels. They might not have necessarily that maturity level of living in an adult world.
That transition could be really, really hard.
Yeah, exactly.
You're not supported properly.
100%. And I think it's our, as a community's responsibility to put that framework there. So when people are coming in outside from school and from colleges and coming through at a young age, They have that support network, which gladly I had coming into the company, where you've got a line manager that understands the process that you're going through and also understands the challenges that you'll be seeing outside of the working environment as well.
Yeah.
So
no, it's definitely, the support network is really, really important, and I think there is an issue there that it's quite company dependent, and it takes a lot of effort to set up. Hence, apprenticeships have improved since they were first thought about, because people have had more time to develop them. I don't know, what is so Mohamed mentioned the Institution of Civil Engineers there. How is it for architectural technology? What kind of support is there from a learned institution and then from union?
My apprenticeship is accredited by the CIOB, the Chartered Institute of Builders.
Yeah.
So it's very much kind of, they already had that process set out. So it kind of just transferred onto the architectural technology course. But a lot of the knowledges and skills and behaviours transfers over quite well to CIAT, which is the Chartered Institute of Architectural Technologists.
Yeah.
A lot of syllables in there. So it works quite well, and CIOB have a lot of support out there as well, and especially at university, they were familiar with the process and what knowledge and milestones we needed to hit.
Yeah.
So there was quite a lot of support there, and I'm always in frequent conversation with the workplace mentors and the support the university gives to ensure that I'm hitting the milestones needed.
Your targets. Yeah. No, I mean, it's useful to have that support. There is a bit of an issue around, I know a lot of degree apprentices don't actually finish their endpoint assessment. They don't do that completion stage. Do you guys find that a challenge? I guess you're coming up to that bit now where you're completing your incorporation and sort of chartership and stuff.
I think finding something a challenge isn't necessarily a bad thing. I personally believe it's a good thing. It's part of the process. So for you to develop, and personally my belief is for you to grow in life, you have to experience difficult situations. You have to gain experience. You have to put the work in a little bit.
Yeah.
And going through the endpoint assessment process just proves the amount of work and effort that you've put in over the years. Essentially what you're doing is you are writing a journal about your past experience and your understandings of the 7 attributes in the case of the Institute of Civil Engineers. And it really helps to focus on the main points surrounding engineering. Engineering isn't just necessarily maybe laying a pipe in the road or producing a design for residential development. You have sustainability factors, you have health and safety factors, you have leadership roles. There's so many different attributes that play into it, and I think that all sort of pushes towards the endpoint assessment. And if you leave it all to the last minute, like with everything in life, you'll be left rushing.
Yeah.
However, if you program your brain to enable you not to be afraid from completing your quarterly reports, you shouldn't be scared of completing them. If you put it in your brain, you should be excited to complete your quarterly report. Yeah. If you change your perspective on the work that you're doing, you will improve a lot in the style of writing, in the efficiency of the writing, in the way you go about your work. However, if you've got a negative outlook towards it, it's very easy just to neglect that.
Yeah, just to ignore it and not have the motivation to do it. I know with my own one, it's it took me a long time to get it into the right format and thinking about it in the right way and emphasizing my own role in projects and stuff.
Yeah.
And putting that together is a challenge. I don't know if your CIOB stuff is of a similar ilk, I guess.
Yeah, and I mean, it is a challenge. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily think it would be worth doing if it wasn't, because a lot of the evidence that is needed for mine, it's things that I'm looking at and you think, well, that's not really to do with me directly, but that's the point of it. It's to get you to branch out your knowledge. It's definitely something, as mentioned, it shouldn't be left to the last minute. I'm currently learning that right now. Not all of it. There's just a few key points where I was thinking, well, how am I going to hit that? With contracts and tendering, it's not something we necessarily do.
But I guess that's part of it, because you're being pushed into areas of business that you can't fall into a rut, because you've got to branch out, otherwise you won't be achieving these key points.
It's learning and developing your skills, because if you know how that's done, then it helps you back when you're either tendering or putting a work package together. But I think it's one of those things where if you lay it out from the start of what you have to do and what evidence you need over the 3 to 5 years that you're doing your degree apprenticeship, it's very manageable, I'd say.
Yeah. And it's definitely something you can use. It's become kind of a theme in the last few episodes where it's like, actually, with the workplace experience, you're kind of hitting 2 birds with 1 stone, if you like, you're getting the university stuff done and the IEng stuff done, and at the same time, which means when I have graduated, I'm now I've got 4 years to do my chartership now, whereas you guys are going to graduate or have graduated and are now 4 years ahead of me.
Yeah. I mean, someone in the architecture team's recently just started their degree apprenticeship, and they were saying, well, it's a 3-year degree, but they've got 4 for like the endpoint assessment and the chartership side of it.
Yeah.
And I have to keep saying, well, you don't need to use that 4. It's kind of just a bit of like leniency, but you can easily complete it in the full 3 if you kind of get ahead of it and plan it out from when you first start.
And I guess that's kind of a bit of, you've got to champion your own development. And I suppose that's a big difference between doing traditional university and then a degree apprenticeship, is that it's not going to be driven for you necessarily. Is that?
Yeah, I'd say that's accurate.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say it's accurate, but I think the support network within the university, you still get, if not the same, most likely more support than a traditional university degree, just for the fact of, giving myself as an example, I started my apprenticeship at Leeds College of Building, and now my classroom was a class of 10, to do the level 4 and level 5 part of my structure of my apprenticeship. I completed that in a class of 10. So at any time, at any point, I could sit down with my lecturer, show him my work. They'd give us different sort of hours after the courses being held just to go through that work. And I feel like that in itself is really beneficial. So just because you're doing an apprenticeship doesn't mean you're not getting the support of the universities and the full sort of attention. It's the opposite. They sort of pay a bit more attention to you because you're only in 1 day a week. So I enjoyed that, and I like that side of my apprenticeship, is having good relationships with your tutors.
Yeah, I do feel like the tutors definitely understand the situation you're in, and that you've got 4 days a week of work, and then the university on top of that, and that there's a lot of pressure necessarily. Well, not necessarily loads of pressure, but there still is the pressure of deadlines and getting work done for your career. So I think the lecturers, I've found, have been quite accommodating and quite, understanding of it, and often give you that bit of extra time with them to go over things you're not 100% sure on.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's worth saying it's not the easy route. No one's saying that a degree apprenticeship is, going to be the easiest thing in the world and it's just going to happen for you, right? But it's good that the universities are, with the program and sort of understand that. And I guess do you reckon that's improved your sort of resilience and stuff, and your ability to manage yourselves and that kind of medium-term planning? Because you've obviously got to balance workload from work, uni, and then obviously whatever it is you do in your spare time as well. Like, that must be a challenge.
Yeah, I think definitely at first it is a challenge. You have to get into the routine of working. You have to get into the routine of going to university 1 day of the week. You have to get into the routine of completing your assignments throughout the weekends, in the evenings. You definitely have to get used to the formalities of it. But I think in the long run, when we understand the why of the apprenticeship, and you really ask yourself, why am I doing this? You look into maybe 10 years, 15 years time of, into the future, where am I going to be? What goals have I got? Is the goal just to get a degree and incorporate, or have I got goals to improve sustainability, improve health and safety, reduce journey times, help different local communities? Do you want to help people in a different country, maybe that are financially as well off as us?
Yeah.
What changes do you want to do to the world? And I think as a young kid looking back to myself, I would say, really understand that why, really understand the difference that you can make towards the world. You can change people's lives. As a civil engineer, I think that's very important to focus on that side of it, and that will steer the direction. Then all the challenges and the long nights and everything become worth it because you've got a direction.
Yeah.
That's what, yeah.
And are you sort of empowered to do that at work, both of you, to champion that change?
Yeah, there is a lot of throughout it. There's, as there is probably with full-time university, there's a lot of like learning about yourself as well, like where your strengths and your weaknesses are. Like, for example, I haven't been great at managing when to actually tell myself to do the work, and occasionally running up to deadlines and running quite long nights to get it in on time. And come the final year, it kind of worked a lot better because I knew I had to set myself that time aside to ensure that it gets done. But yeah, definitely having that goal of what you want to achieve, whether it's, it's not just your degree, it's more how you want to do your work to impact other people.
Yeah.
That's definitely a good motivator, I'd say.
I'd like to add as well, getting into it at an early age or just going through the apprenticeship route of working and studying, I think for me personally, it's given me a passion into the industry. So I'm not just, I wouldn't class it as work. I'd class this as my life, I'm putting my life into this. I spend more time, with the work colleagues than I do with my own family. So I think it's really having that passion, having that drive. If you say, for example, you're working on AutoCAD, you're drawing that line. Why am I drawing this line? Why am I drawing that curb line? What effects and what impacts is that going to have on the different variables, like safety? Or it's having that understanding of what you're doing, not necessarily just copy and pasting across and being present.
Yeah. I mean, we've chatted about it in some of the previous episodes about making sure you have a really sort of long, hard think about what it is you want to do when you're making those apprenticeship selections, not to worry about it. And it's the same with selecting a university degree, but you have to be passionate about what you're doing, otherwise you're not going to succeed. You have to be able to channel that enthusiasm and believe in what you're doing, otherwise it's not going to work. You're not going to be successful.
I think as well, it's like not every day is a sunny day. I think people need to understand that as well. We are humans. You're going to have a day where you're not going to really feel like doing the apprenticeship, but you're going to have a good day where you feel like, you feel amazing because you've got all your work submitted, or, so it's just a transition. Not everything in life is up. It's balanced. You go up, down. And I think if you learn to find a balance along that wave and you attack at it every day, you keep consistent at it, you keep your vision clear. And more importantly as well, the people around you have motivating you in the correct direction.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any reason that anyone would fail. I think as long as you put your effort in and you keep your head set and you keep good people around you, I think you could succeed in anything, not just in the apprenticeship, but in anything.
Yeah, in your sort of day-to-day life. I mean, and it's important to note, if you've got a manager who's sort of struggling to support you, you need to give them that guidance as well. It's a two-way street. Yeah. So I suppose as a closing remark, what's your sort of top tip for someone just starting off their apprenticeship or just applying?
Probably just to manage your time.
Yeah.
And leave, don't throw everything at university, don't throw it all at work, kind of split it quite evenly and give yourself time to breathe, I say.
Yeah.
Give yourself a break from it all, because if not, you'll just drive yourself crazy, I'd say.
That's fair enough. Anything from Mohamed?
Yeah, mine would be I've got two actually. I'll have to break your rules a little bit. Mine would be to see, a smart guy gave me this saying, is to be able to see, for example, a lamppost, but understand what makes that lamppost work, where the electric's coming from, where's the cable going from. So enable yourself to be able to see correctly, not just look at something, but to actually see. And then the second one would be to understand your why and to have a reason for yourself why you're doing it, whether it's to make your mother proud, your father proud, to make yourself proud. Having a true understanding of what you want to do and why you're doing it, I think is very important.
What you want to achieve. Well, to be fair, your lamppost metaphor really resonates with me as a utility engineer, because they're always in the way. Well, yes. So thank you both of you for sharing your sort of insights with me.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Perfect.
Thanks for having us down.
Bye. Thank you for sharing your experiences with me and our listeners today. We also need to say a massive thank you to York and North Yorkshire Combined Authority As part of their Keystone Employer Group, SYSTRA is working to encourage young people into education, employment, or training by giving early careers professionals the opportunity to work on some of the world's largest infrastructure projects.